The soft rain had just stopped when Alexander found himself standing outside the little cafe again. He told himself he was only there for a cup of coffee, but deep down he knew the truth. He hoped to see Prisca once more. As he stepped inside, the familiar scent of fresh coffee filled the air. His eyes searched the room until they landed on her. Prisca was arranging flowers on a small table near the window. A loose strand of hair rested beside the scar on her cheek, but she wore the same gentle smile that had stayed in Alexander's mind ever since they first met. When she noticed him, she smiled politely. "You're back," she said. "I guess your coffee is better than anywhere else," Alexander replied with a grin. She laughed softly. "Or maybe you're just being kind." Alexander ordered his usual drink but chose a table close to hers. After a few minutes, he gathered the courage to speak again. "Do you always decorate the cafe yourself?" Prisca nodded. "Flowers make people smile, even if they're having a bad day." Alexander looked at the colorful bouquet she had arranged with such care. "You notice little things," he said. "I have to," Prisca answered. "Sometimes little things are the only beautiful part of someone's day." Her words stayed with him. As the afternoon became quieter, they started talking about books, favorite movies, and childhood memories. The conversation flowed naturally, as if they had known each other for years. Alexander discovered that Prisca loved reading classic novels and dreamed of opening a small library for children one day. "I don't think dreams ever disappear," she said. "Sometimes they just wait for the right time." Alexander admired her optimism. "You've been through difficult times, haven't you?" he asked gently. Prisca hesitated for a moment before giving a small nod. "Everyone has scars," she whispered. "Mine just happened to be visible." Alexander didn't ask more questions. Instead, he respected her silence. Just then, two customers entered the cafe. One of them glanced at Prisca's face before whispering something to his friend. They both laughed quietly. Alexander noticed the change in Prisca's expression. Her smile faded for only a second before she continued working as though nothing had happened. It broke his heart. After the customers left, Alexander walked over to help her collect the empty cups. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," he answered. "I want to." For the first time, Prisca looked directly into his eyes without fear or embarrassment. She realized he wasn't staring at her scar. He was looking at her. And somehow, that simple difference made her feel more beautiful than she had felt in years. As evening sunlight streamed through the cafe windows, neither of them realized that this ordinary conversation was quietly becoming the beginning of an extraordinary love story, one built not on appearances, but on kindness, trust, and the courage to truly see another person's heart. Over the next few weeks, Alexander found more and more reasons to visit the little cafe. Sometimes he came before work, sometimes during lunch, and occasionally just before closing. At first, Prisca thought it was a coincidence, but eventually she realized he genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. One quiet afternoon, after the last customer had left, Alexander asked, "Would you like to take a walk in the park? It's too beautiful a day to spend it all indoors." Prisca hesitated. She wasn't used to accepting invitations. People often judged her before getting to know her, and she had learned to protect herself by keeping her distance. After a long pause, she smiled. "I'd like that." The nearby park was peaceful, with children laughing on the playground and birds singing from the tall trees. They walked slowly along a winding path lined with blooming flowers. "I used to come here when I was little," Prisca said. "Life felt much simpler back then." Alexander smiled. "Maybe happiness isn't about having a simple life. Maybe it's about finding the right person to share it with." His words made her heart beat a little faster. As they reached a quiet bench, they sat together, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, Alexander asked softly, "Can I ask you something?" Prisca nodded. "How did you get your scar?" She looked down at her hands. The memory still hurt, even after all these years. "There was a fire," she began quietly. "A little girl was trapped inside a burning house. Everyone was afraid to go in." Alexander listened carefully. "I couldn't leave her there," Prisca continued. "I managed to carry her outside, but part of the roof collapsed before I escaped." She gently touched the scar on her face. The doctors saved my life, but they couldn't erase this. Alexander remained silent for a moment before saying, "You risked everything to save a child." Prisca gave a sad smile. "People never ask about that. They only see what's left behind." Alexander turned toward her. "I don't see something that was lost," he said. "I see proof that someone was brave enough to save another person's life." Tears gathered in Prisca's eyes. For years she had hidden from mirrors, avoided photographs, and believed the scar defined her. Yet sitting beside Alexander, she felt seen in a completely different way. As they prepared to leave, a little girl ran past them chasing colorful butterflies. She stopped suddenly in front of Prisca. "I like your flowers," the little girl said, pointing to the small bouquet Prisca was carrying. Prisca smiled warmly and handed her one of the flowers. The child hugged her without hesitation before running back to her parents. Alexander watched the moment unfold. "See," he whispered. "Children notice kindness before appearance. Maybe adults should learn to do the same." Prisca laughed through her tears, feeling hope bloom inside her heart for the first time in many years. As they walked home beneath the fading evening sky, she realized that perhaps her future didn't have to be defined by the scars of her past. As the days passed, Alexander and Prisca grew closer. Their conversations became the brightest part of each day. Whether they were sharing coffee at the cafe, walking through the park, or talking about their dreams, they felt a peace they had never known before. One evening, Alexander invited Prisca to a charity event hosted by his family's company. He wanted the world to see the incredible woman he had come to admire. At first, Prisca refused. "I don't belong at a place like that," she said quietly. "You belong anywhere you choose to be," Alexander replied with confidence. "And I'd be honored if you came with me." After much hesitation, she agreed. On the night of the event, Prisca wore a simple navy blue dress. She looked elegant, but she couldn't stop worrying about the scar on her face. Standing outside the Grand Hotel, she took a deep breath. "What if people laugh at me?" she whispered. Alexander gently held her hand. "Then they'll prove they don't deserve to know you." His words gave her the courage to walk inside. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and smiling guests. At first, everything seemed perfect. But soon, whispers began to spread across the room. "Who is she? Look at her face. Why would Alexander bring someone like her?" The cruel comments reached Prisca's ears. Her confidence began to disappear. Alexander noticed the pain in her eyes. Before anyone could say another word, he stepped onto the stage to give his scheduled speech. Instead of talking only about the charity, he looked directly at the audience. "Tonight," he began, "we're here to celebrate compassion and humanity. But compassion means nothing if we judge people by their appearance." The room fell silent. Alexander continued, "Many of you are staring at the woman standing near the entrance. You see a scar. I see courage." Everyone turned toward Prisca. "Years ago," he said proudly, "she risked her own life to rescue a child from a burning house. That scar is not something to hide. It is proof of extraordinary bravery." Not a single person spoke. Several guests lowered their heads in shame. Alexander walked down from the stage and stood beside Prisca. "I'm proud to know her," he said. "And I'm proud that she is part of my life." Tears filled Prisca's eyes. For years she had hidden from the judgment of strangers. Now, someone she loved was standing beside her without fear or hesitation. One by one, guests approached to apologize for their assumptions. Some thanked Prisca for her bravery, while others admitted they had judged her unfairly. For the first time since the accident, Prisca felt accepted, not because her scar had disappeared, but because the truth behind it had finally been seen. As they left the ballroom together, Alexander smiled. "You once told me everyone has scars," he said. Prisca nodded. "Maybe," he continued, "the strongest people are the ones who refuse to let those scars stop them from loving or being loved." Looking up at the stars, Prisca squeezed his hand. In that moment, she realized that love wasn't about finding someone who saw perfection, it was about finding someone who saw your heart, even when the rest of the world only noticed your scars.